Hello, I'm Andi, and today I want to take a look at the Yabusame Archer, the cavalry archer of the Japanese, and I want to see if the cavalry archer is OP and deserves a nerf, as it is hinted in the current public beta. So the range resistance of the Yabusame are about to get nerfed or reduced by 5% from 50 to 45%. A quick disclaimer by me, personally I like to play Japan, and I also like to use the Yabusame Archer from time to time, not because it is OP, but because it is an interesting designed unit and it fits its niche perfectly. But now let's get into it. First I want to look at the raw stats and compare it to the Dragoon, which is my benchmark, and then I also want to let them fight, so the Dragoon and the Yabusame Archers, against each other and also against other typical units you will see. So for example skirmishers, musketeers, hussars, and then see how they compare or how they fight against those units. You will also see the scenario and the fight in the background. Of course it's not the most sophisticated scenario, but it does its job, and if you want to have it I can also share it with you, just ask me. For stats as a basis I use the spreadsheet created by the Reddit user Turnspender, which is a very good one, so thanks for creating that, and I will highlight the most important parts or talk about the difference between the two units. So first off, the cost. Yabusame costs 60 food and 150 coin compared to Dragoon, who costs 90 food and 90 coin. So generally you can already see that Yabusames are a bit more expensive and they are especially heavy on coin, and because coin is generally more scarce and is gathered slower, it is the more valuable resource, and so that means the Yabusame Archer is quite a bit more expensive, and depending on what you assume, it is 15 to 30% more expensive than the Dragoon. Let's talk about movement speed. Yabusames have a movement speed of 6.8, and that's roughly the same as a Hussar, which has a movement speed of 6.75. And the Dragoon is quite a bit more faster than your Yabusame with 7.25 speed. This is already significant because with Dragoons you can chase down Hussars or Yabusames, while with Yabusames you practically cannot do that. Now let's talk about the resistances. Yabusames do have 200 HP, that's the same amount as the Dragoons have, but the Dragoons only have a range resist of 0.2, while the Yabusames do have a range resist of 0.5. So that's quite significant. That means even if you adjust for cost, Yabusames can take a lot more fire from ranged weapons. In melee fights, Dragoons and Yabusame perform similarly, but because the Yabusame is more expensive and if you adjust for cost, that means the Dragoon performs better in melee fights than Yabusames. Now let's talk about range and damage. The Yabusames have 50% more range, so 18 compared to the 12 of the Dragoons or the cavalry archers, and that's actually quite significant. This means it's way easier for them to attack cannons, and it also means you can keep them a bit more back. Now let's talk about damage. Like all archers, Yabusames do have more rate of fire but lower base damage than the Dragoons, and if you combine those two numbers and calculate the damage per second, the base DPS is lower for the Yabusames than for the Dragoons. That means they perform worse against all units which they don't have a modifier on. To make up for that, they do have a bit of a higher modifier against cavalry, and they do have a very high modifier against artillery, so that means they can kill artillery exceptionally fast, and they are very good at killing artillery. This again is offset though by the weaker performance against infantry and cavalry in general. They do perform worse against melee cavalry especially, and also against ranged cavalry. Hit and run is easier with Dragoons though, because they have a better attack animation and they are also a bit faster than Yabusames. Now let's summarize the main findings of this video and discuss if the Yabusame nerf is justified. The Yabusame Archer can be summarized as a light cavalry unit which excels in its niche, that is killing cannons and being a bit more tanky in ranged fights, and they also do have a considerable amount more range. But those described advantages don't come for free. To trade off, they are worse in melee fights. They generally perform worse than Dragoons or Cav Archers against all other units except cannons, so against cavalry and infantry they are quite a bit weaker than their counterparts. They also do have this one big advantage which is hard to quantify, so the range advantage they have over goons or Cav Archers. That gets also balanced by the fact that they are quite a bit slower than Dragoons, and so speed is also a hard to quantify metric. So they do perform better in one metric, but they also are worse in another metric. And lastly, Yabusames don't synergize well with Ashigaru Musketeers, which is, in my opinion, still the best units the Japanese have. So is the nerf justified? Personally, I don't think it is, but then again, it's also only a small adjustment, so it's still a good unit, but it's a bit weaker than it should be, because I think it's already in a balanced state. Yabusame do have their niche where they excel at, so it's sniping cannons and surviving prolonged skirmisher dragoon fights, because they have more range, HP or range resist, but they are also worse against melee cavalry, so you can take advantage of that fact. This marks the end of this video. What are your thoughts about the Yabusame? Let me know in the comments. As always, thanks for watching and see you guys around. Bye bye!